Now, I don't know about you, but I was really excited to hear that RDJ will return to the MCU as Doctor Doom. RDJ is one of the most talented actors of our generation, and having him return is definitely a really smart move. I think it's a genius move for the creatives at Marvel to not have him return as Iron Man, as his sacrifice in Avengers Endgame perfectly brings Tony Stark's story to a close. To me, it would have felt like a cash grab to have him return as a multiverse variant of Iron Man, or to pluck a younger version of Tony out of the time stream for the next Avengers installment. Now, even though I'm excited to see RDJ and the Russo brothers return to the Avengers franchise, I couldn't help but notice that their return came with a bit of a divisive reaction. Some people like myself were really excited, whereas others weren't so happy to see RDJ cast as Doctor Doom.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
After my excitement died down a bit, I came to the realization that the Russo brothers, RDJ, and all of the creatives at Marvel will need to do a lot of work to turn Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars into an awesome experience for the fans. In this video, I'm going to go over my concerns with the moves that Marvel is making right now, and hopefully after watching this video, I won't ruin your enthusiasm for the future of the MCU. But before we move on, please be sure to like and subscribe to Reverb Comics. You do not want to miss out on our awesome content. Now, I'll be fair, RDJ and the Russo brothers have an amazing track record. The Russo brothers have been making high-quality Marvel films dating all the way back to 2014's Captain America: Winter Soldier. And over the past couple years, RDJ has been making significant acting achievements in his career. Hence, it's easy to see why the producers at Marvel would want to bring them back. Nobody, including the fans, wants to see Marvel experiment like they did in Phase 4 and Phase 5. So placing their bets on RDJ and the Russo brothers seems like the best way for them to have another artistic and commercial success on their hands. I was really excited for RDJ to return to Marvel until I remembered that he's one of the most typecasted actors in Hollywood. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look at his most famous roles. Tony Stark is a genius who starts out as having a lot of selfish tendencies. He's arrogant, he's sarcastic, he's a know-it-all, and yet towards the end of his character arcs in the MCU, he becomes less and less egotistical. In the movie Due Date, he plays an architect who's hitching a ride with an extremely difficult guy to reach his wife before she goes into labor. Now, even though he's not a super genius, his character is depicted as a smart yet arrogant jerk with these sharp and witty jabs who ultimately becomes a more selfless person at the end of that film. In The Judge, he plays a lawyer who's, you guessed it, a smart yet arrogant jerk who becomes a more selfless person at the end of that movie. Now, I haven't watched any of his Sherlock Holmes movies, but I have a feeling that he plays a similar type of character. Now, to be fair, he has played other types of characters. Some of them were pretty different. Like, really different. But for the most part, I've mostly seen him typecast in those roles. Now, this sort of does and does not reassure me that he'll do a great job of playing Doctor Doom. As longtime comic book fans know, Doctor Doom has a very big ego. He's very proficient in both magic and the sciences. Hence, RDJ can pretty well nail the egotistical and intellectual aspects of the character. But here's the thing about Doctor Doom. His arrogance is his own Achilles heel. He's not just the type of guy that gets better personality-wise. He just doesn't change. His ego is so big that he genuinely believes that his type of dictatorship prevails. Doctor Doom will quite literally strip away everyone's freedom so that he can achieve a utopian society. His ego is so big that he literally thinks that he can stop humanity from destroying itself. And the crazy thing is, he actually achieved this goal in certain continuities. In the Avengers cartoon, he became the dictator of the world. He cured society of all illnesses, he stopped all wars from happening, and he solved the climate crisis. The only downside is that he took away everyone's autonomy in the process. But he still solved these major global issues nonetheless. Now, am I saying that Doctor Doom is in the right? Of course not. All I'm saying is that I don't know if RDJ can pull this off. Now, I have no doubt that he'll be able to nail the egotistical super genius side of the character. After all, he's been typecast as that character for a pretty long time. But I'm not that confident that he'll be able to pull off that evil dictator side of the character. It's going to be pretty tough getting audiences to sympathize with a guy who wants to take everyone's freedom away from them. After all, that's pretty anti-American. And just speaking as a guy from up north, you guys seem to really care about your freedom. Like a lot. like to the point where it gets pretty crazy. The creatives at Marvel need to do some serious work to get the audience to at least appreciate the complex villain known as Doctor Doom. Like, for real, they're gonna have to do some serious work, as we'll only get a short amount of time with the character. Which leads me to my next point. After my excitement died down a bit, I realized that we're only going to see RDJ's Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, and probably for a brief moment in the new Fantastic Four movie, which is not that great if you think about it. Throughout Phase 1 and Phase 3 of the MCU, there was a really nice build-up for Thanos. We got to see him in the post-credit scenes for the first two Avengers movies, and we got to see what type of guy he was through the relationship he had with Nebula and Gamora in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. And you guessed it, the worst dad of the MCU trophy award goes to Thanos. Now, even though Marvel seems to be pivoting away from the mistakes that they've made in Phase 4 and Phase 5, this Doctor Doom move that they made seems pretty rushed. Up to this point, there's only been one minor Doctor Doom reference so far. Fans were quick to point out the Doctor Doom Secret Wars cover in the first Deadpool and Wolverine trailer. There were some interesting fan theories that suggested that Doctor Doom was trying to acquire vibranium in the Black Panther Wakanda Forever film, but aside from that, I can't really think of many Doctor Doom references. In fact, I can't think of many Marvel Phase 4 or Phase 5 projects, aside from Deadpool and Wolverine and Loki, that gave the MCU a sense of direction, which kind of makes me uneasy about this whole Doctor Doom move. Now, I understand that the MCU is in a pretty tough spot. For years, they were setting up Kang as the big bad for the MCU. Then Jonathan Majors had his legal problems, so I see why they had to make a move away from Kang. Like or hate Jonathan Majors, he's not an easy actor to replace. The guy has quite the range. Each Kang variant that he played felt very different and unique. Now, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think the creatives at Marvel should recast Kang and have that prime version of Kang wipe out the Council of Kangs. Let's make a drinking game out of this. Every time I say Kang, take a shot. You'll have a lot more fun watching this video. That way, this new actor playing Kang would feel like a real threat. To have a prime version of Kang completely wipe out a council of super geniuses would make the character feel like an Avengers level adversary. Even though Doctor Doom is a very powerful villain in the comics, the creative team at Marvel really needs to showcase how powerful of a threat he is to casual audiences. Who knows, maybe Doctor Doom will wipe out the Council of Kangs. The point is that they put a lot of time and effort into Kang and his variants. To sidestep this Kang storyline and to replace it with a rushed Doctor Doom storyline will be tricky. Most Marvel fans didn't really like the rushed and messy storytelling these past couple of years. Pushing out a short and quick high-quality Doctor Doom storyline will be a pretty tricky thing to accomplish. Speaking of high-quality storytelling, this leads me to my next point. The MCU needs to have more artistic integrity. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate RDJ. I think he's a really talented guy. I just wished he'd walk away from Marvel. Now, I get that he's not returning as Iron Man or a Tony Stark variant. However, it feels like a bit of a cash grab to have him return to the MCU. It's kind of like that situation with Hugh Jackman. Even though Hugh Jackman played an alternate version of Wolverine, it would have been nice to see him end his run with the character in Logan. Logan was so well done that it's considered to be one of the best superhero movies of all time. To see him go from a Wolverine who went through hell and made the ultimate sacrifice play to a Wolverine that put up with Deadpool's jokes doesn't feel like a nice progression. Even Deadpool makes a joke saying that Hugh Jackman just came back to cash in on that Disney money. And a similar situation happened with Chris Evans. The Russo brothers really put a pinpoint on Captain America's worth in Avengers Endgame, as he finally got to lift Mjolnir and hold his own against Thanos. To have Chris Evans return as a foul-mouthed Human Torch who gets killed by Cassandra Nova in a hilarious way kinda ruins his epic Captain America moments. And the same thing goes for RDJ. Having him return as a different Marvel character kinda ruins it for me. I wish everyone had the same level of artistic integrity as Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan. Apparently, Christian Bale was asked to make a cameo appearance at the end of The Flash. Even though it was a one-off fun thing to do, Christian Bale refused. He refused the big bag of money Warner Brothers would have given him for returning as Bruce Wayne because he did not want to take the chance and ruin Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. He didn't want to run the risk of ruining the artistic accomplishment by appearing as some sort of gag in another comic book movie. And I gotta say, I'm glad that Christian Bale did not cash out. The Dark Knight isn't just one of the best comic book movies of all time. It's one of the best movies in general. It's like my generation's version of The Godfather. It's probably one of the best movies I'll ever see in my lifetime. Every time you watch the movie, you appreciate it more and more as you get a better understanding of just how layered and deep it actually is. When I watched it for the first time as a 13-year-old kid, I just saw it as a basic good guy versus bad guy superhero movie. Now, as a fully grown man-child, I've come to understand how complex and beautiful The Dark Knight actually is. Through The Dark Knight, I've come to understand that societies need scapegoats, a good balance between chaos and order, and sometimes outright lies in order to keep them functioning. It showed me that these powerful institutions can fail at any moment at the hands of a lunatic, and yet, at the same time, the impenetrable will of the human spirit can keep societies together. It showed me that a typical person's morals, philosophies, and values are flexible, and yet, at the same time, an individual can overcome so much adversity and accomplish things beyond measure. In retrospect, I'm so glad that Christian Bale didn't cash out and turn his version of Bruce Wayne into a cheap gag. Did he cash out a bit when he played Gore the God Butcher? Well, kind of, but at least he didn't ruin the Dark Knight legacy. Marvel, RDJ, and the Russo brothers are walking a very fine line here. While I'm glad that they're not touching Tony Stark's journey throughout Marvel Phase 1 through 3, I'm worried that RDJ returning as Doctor Doom will somehow ruin the artistic accomplishment he had with Iron Man. Cause, let's be honest, there will be similarities and comparisons. It's like what RDJ said when he got the Doctor Doom role.
New mask. Same task.
At this point, I just wish the MCU will go back to basics like they did in Phase 1. As in, make conservative, decent-paced films that just get us invested in these beloved characters before the big Avengers flick rolls around. In all honesty though, I think Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars will be pretty decent. Even though I have my concerns and the creatives at Marvel have their work cut out for them, it's reassuring that they have a group of talented people like RDJ, the Russo brothers, and Kevin Feige in their arsenal. But what do you think? What do you think about RDJ returning to the MCU? How do you think Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars will turn out? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe to Reverb Comics so that you do not miss out on our awesome content. Stay groovy.